wave junctures. Today we're going to learn about how the principle of Occam's razor can improve your wave counting ability. What exactly is the principle of Occam's razor? It simply states that when faced with two scenarios, the most simple is most likely. For example, if a tree falls in the woods, is it more likely the tree fell in the woods because it was old and termite ridden? Or is it probable that the tree fell in the woods because it was hit by a flying saucer? Well, of course, the most likely scenario is the simplest one, and that would be that the tree fell in the woods because of termites or it was old. We can apply the same logic to our wave counting ability, and it will greatly enhance our interpretation and I believe also our accuracy. We're going to look at a price chart of JP Morgan up from the June low. Here's one interpretation right here, where I'm utilizing a WXY wave count. Now there's a few interesting aspects of this price chart. For example, the running triangle in wave B. There's nothing wrong with that. And here we have another running triangle here in the wave Y formation. The rules and guidelines of the wave principle are adhered to with this interpretation. So this interpretation is, of course, a correct interpretation. If you labeled this price chart of JP Morgan this way, there is nothing wrong with it. Well, let's look at another interpretation. Here we're utilizing a zigzag. We have 1, expanded flat 2, 3, here we have a 4 with a small failure, and also a fifth wave move up. That's also a truncation for wave A. That's followed by a WXY for B, and then we have an ending diagonal for a wave C. This would be a zigzag because it's a 5-3-5 pattern. The prior interpretation would be a complex correction. This is another way to actually identify or label the waves of the JP Morgan price chart. Well, let's look at a different interpretation. Here we have actually an opposite interpretation, which is exceptionally bullish. We can identify the June advance as a wave 1, still with the small truncation, hence the red wave 1. Then we can identify that pullback into the July low as a wave 2, and then we can actually identify this move to the upside here instead of a developing as a series of instead of a ending diagonal, we can call it as a series of 1s and 2s to the upside. Okay, now one more interpretation would be this one here, a leading diagonal. Again, the rules and guidelines of the wave principle are adhered to. Which interpretation is most correct? Well, again, this is where I tend to employ Occam's razor and go with what is most simple. Well, let's look at this price chart from a very simple perspective. Step back so we can see the forest for the trees. What we have in JP Morgan up from the June low is we have an initial move up. If you want to call this a 5-wave move, you can. The subdivisions are there. If you want to call it a 3-wave move, you can. The subdivisions are there. But bottom line, this is a very singular price move to the upside. The move to the downside here, this move here, as I've identified as wave B, it's slow, it's choppy, it's very time consuming, it consists of a number of overlapping waves, and it only registered a partial retracement of the prior move to the upside. The final move, as we see here as we move into the August high, well, thus far we have 5 waves. Waves 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They do overlap, so this is indicative of a rising wedge or an ending diagonal. As you know, ending diagonals are terminating wave patterns which are found only in the 5th wave position of impulse waves or the wave C position of ABC formations. So this wave pattern at this juncture on this price chart is very applicable. Also, we know that counter-trend price action tends to be contained by parallel lines, as is this price move right here. And we also know that the most common relationship found within a zigzag is equality between wave C and wave A. Well, wave C equals wave A at 39.27. And as you can see, we pushed just a little bit below that level in yesterday's trading. My point here is that rather than getting caught up in the complexities of this structure, simply lean back. How many price moves are apparent here? Well, primarily 3. We have the move up, the move down, and then the subsequent advance. From a more of an Elliott wave perspective, this is a nice impulsive move. This is clearly a counter-trend move. This does indeed appear to be an ending diagonal. Moreover, the move has all the traits and characteristics which are very common to counter-trend price moves or corrective wave patterns. Keep it simple. Yes, we can use more complex interpretations, and there's certainly nothing wrong with these interpretations at all. But just think of it this way. If you hear hoofbeats outside of your window at night, what are the odds it's going to be a horse versus a zebra? Well, if you live in the United States, odds tend to favor that it's going to be a horse. Always veer on the side of caution. Always embrace or adopt the most simplest interpretation over one which is more complex.